Hey guys, tonight we're knee-deep in flour before sunrise, walking the earthenware-crammed streets of doomed Pompeii. Picture this: your knuckles ache before you've even rolled out of bed. Modern gyms have nothing on Roman dawn shifts. Trust me, you wouldn't survive the leg day these bakers pull daily. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your city and current time. Let's see who's braving this pre-dawn grind with our Pompeian protagonist. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Rooster screams shred the violet horizon, their shrill alarm clocks demanding payment in spilled grain. You blink grit from your eyes, ash dust from Vesuvius, already tickling your throat. 380 bakeries crowded this city once, their ovens fueled by stolen naps and cheaper wheat. Your straw-stuffed mattress groans as you rise, the imprint of its ropes tattooing your hip. Cool tile shocks your bare feet, a momentary relief before the furnace-like forge claims them. Historians still argue whether bakeries ran night shifts, but your cracked heels know the truth. Moonlight slinks across the courtyard, illuminating the millstone squatting like a grumpy old god. Every bakery had one monoliths carved from volcanic basalt, shipped from Sicily's quarries. You heave the grain sack barley, and spelt grains cascading into the quern's maw. Mill work was often forced onto donkeys or slaves, though legend says one baker trained his dog to push the stone. Your palms blister against the wooden handle. No beasts of burden here, just calloused hands and curses. Damp dawn air clings to your tunic, the faintest hint of fish sauce wafting from last night's dinner. Pass a jar of watered wine to your lips, vinegar bite jolting your spine straight. A honey-glazed fig sits half-eaten on the counter, breakfast stolen between rotations of the grindstone. Bread was currency, here 8 loaves per sestertius, or 10 if you flirted with the right soldier. A neighbor's baby wails through thin walls, echoing the millstone's screech note for note. You hum an old hymn to Fornax, goddess of ovens, though her favor feels fickle today. Sunlight slaps the pavement outside, slithering toward your flour-dusted threshold. Your shadow stretches long and thin across the floor, a Chinese letter puppet mimicking your every grind. They'll come soon, dockworkers and shopgirls and hungover legionnaires, all demanding their weight in warm bread. Your kneading trough gapes like an open mouth, demanding to be fed. You plunge fists into the dough, knuckles cracking like kindling. A scar on your thumb remembers the day you learned not to argue with a hot kiln. The first ember glows in the oven's depths, your breath stoking it to life. Dry fig branches snap between your fingers, smoke curling into shapes that almost look like words. 97 bricks form the arch, each one etched with faded blessings to Vesta. Outside, a cart clatters over paving stones, its uneven wheels mirroring your pulse. Someone shouts about a spoiled wine shipment, their voice fraying at the edges. You swipe sweat from your brow, salt stinging the cut you got yesterday from a smuggled amphora. Through the window, Vesuvius looms beneath a cloudless sky, its slopes deceptively calm. Modern scholars might call it dormant, but your bones know better. Ash swirls in the morning light, falling like phantom snow onto your flour-streaked forearms. The dough ball grows taut beneath your palms, a living thing fighting confinement. You punch it down harder than necessary, venting frustrations onto glutinous flesh. A bead of sweat plummets into the mixture, seasoning tomorrow's bread with tonight's exhaustion. 3 quick knocks rattle your door, the wheat merchant arriving with yesterday's regrets. His donkeys bray off-key, protesting loads of grain, adulterated with pebbles and pride. You'll sift through it later, separating lies from nourishment under the noon sun. An amphora slips from your grip, shattering against the floor in a rain of terracotta. Olive oil oozes toward the drain, liquid gold, wasted on unforgiving stone. The scent clings to your sandals. You'll smell like a fried dormouse all morning. Somewhere beyond your wall, a lyre plucks out a wedding-spreading disaster song. Laughter bubbles up from the bathhouse, steam carrying secrets your oven can't hope to match. Your hands keep moving, kneading, shaping, surviving as Pompeii stirs like a beast beneath its volcanic blanket. The first loaf slaps onto the peel, its crust already blistering in the heat. You count seconds through gritted teeth, 98, 99, 100, before yanking it back to safety. Perfection was never the goal, just sustenance, just another dawn survived. A lone dog trots past your doorway, scavenging crumbs from last night's forgotten feasts. Its tail wags once in your direction, a small mercy in the mounting heat. You toss it a burnt edge, charcoal kindness, disappearing down shadowed alleys. Your name echoes from somewhere up the street, a customer's impatient bark. You answer with flour-dusted hands and a smile sharp enough to slice bread. The millstone groans, the oven sighs, and your day truly begins. Your sandals slap against stone worn smooth by generations of bakers before you, each groove in the floor memorized by calloused feet. Your hands fish through pre-dawn shadows for the grain sack, its rough hemp fibers snagging on work-cracked fingertips. Historians still argue whether Pompeian bakers bought flour or milled their own. But your forearms know the truth with every lifted sack. Yesterday's coals wink red beneath the ash, a frugal habit your father called disrespectful to Vulcan himself. You blow gently, watch sparks rise like drunken fireflies, and wonder if the wine seller's daughter might smile today when you pass her stall. The first dough ball slaps the kneading table, a rhythm familiar as your own heartbeat. Feel every pebble the millstone missed. Those cheating grain merchants will answer to the edile today, or your fists. A cat's paw bats flour motes, floating in sunrise beams, its stripes mimicking the shadows of the bread racks. You flick water at it, a game older than the cobblestones out front, and hear the familiar hispatter of retreat. A sharp rap at the shutter makes you jump. The widow Alia, 3 hours early with her special order. Her silver glints in the weak light, enough to bake extra sesame seeds into her loaf. Your smile feels stiff as you pocket the coin. She'll be back tomorrow, demanding honey instead. The water clock drips like a leaky roof, each plunk counting down to the shutter's rise. You wipe soot-streaked hands on a linen rag, already stiff with yesterday's grime. Hear the shuffling outside growing louder, leather sandals slapping stone. A child's whine cut short by a parent's hush. Salt crust crumbles under your thumbnail as you prep the proofing bowls, your grandmother's secret ratio of Sicilian sea salt to barley ash. Basic Roman bread required no yeast, relying on wild spores in the air. But the fancy stuff, that's where stolen Egyptian sourdough starters earn their keep. Your fingers trace graffiti on the work table, a crude phallus carved by your apprentice last Saturnalia, and you make a mental note to dock his wages again. The first tourist from Capua bellows for his order before the shutters lift, his Latin mangled by last night's garum breath. You crunch through a fig stolen from yesterday's offerings, sweet pulp sticking to your teeth, and count 7 heartbeats before answering. Let him sweat. The morning rush won't care about his fancy equestrian ring. Cold embers bite your palm as you rebuild the fire. A hiss escapes before you can swallow it. Blisters are just bakers' tattoos, each one a badge from hungry mouths. The bread shovel clangs against brick, that peculiar music of carbonized loaf bottoms and iron scraping stone. You glance at the streets, frescoes glowing in new sunlight. Cupid riding a dolphin right next door, the paint still bright from last year's restoration. Tourists think it's art. You know it's just advertisement for the brothel upstairs. Flour dust halos your head as you heft the first batch, 12 identical rounds imprinted with the bakery's stamp. That'll be 2, as for the regulars, 3 if they want yesterday's honey drizzle. Mouse droppings pepper the corner grain bin. You'll deal with that problem when the crowd's thin. A wax tablet by the scales lists today's debts. Senator's steward at the top in angry red letters. Your stylus hovers, adds an extra charge for urgency in crooked letters. Let him read it while choking on his precious spelt loaf. A crash outside. Some fool tripped over a chamber pot someone dumped too early. The crowd's laughter smells like garlic and bad decisions. Your hands keep shaping dough, muscles working through the noise, knuckles white as the flour caked under your nails. Steam rises as the first loaves hit the stone, the scent of civilization itself, according to philosophers. You prefer simpler truths. Bread smells like survival. And 7 hours of lost sleep, a drunk's soused rendition of a tavern song, drifts through the shutters. He'll be your problem once the wine shops kick everyone out. Wipe the sweat pooling where your tunic binds, the linen already gray with repeated wear. Your wife's voice nags in your head about laundry days. You'll promise extra bread for her friends, tomorrow, empty words for empty baskets. A child's hand darts through the shutter gap, swipes a burned roll you'd set aside. Let him have it. The blackened crust hides weevils better anyway. The water clock's final drip echoes time to face the horde, your audience of the hungry and the hurried. The bread shovel becomes a scepter. Your kingdom is 6 feet of weathered countertop and an oven hotter than Vulcan's forge. First customer slams down a coin, so worn you can barely read Tiberius's profile. Make change with lead tokens from your apron. Watch his eyes narrow, calculating the math. Flatter him with an extra pinch of poppy seeds. Better tips grease the day's wheels. Your tally stick notches the sails, each mark deeper than the last. The crowd's roar fades to background noise, an oven's symphony of crackling flames and collapsing dough. Smell the promise of 1,000 meals, the glue holding Pompeii's streets together, one golden crust at a time. Your elbows sink deep into the grain mound. Wheat cascades into the quern's gaping mouth like liquid sunlight. The millstone groans, its volcanic rock teeth gnashing louder than a senator's indigestion. You've heard scholars still bicker over whether most Pompeian mills used slaves or donkeys. Right now, your aching shoulders vote for donkeys. Sweat sluices down your spine, your tunic's damp, burden rivaling the laundry baskets at the fuller's shop. Every push against the wooden lever sends pebbles skittering. Those thrice cursed grain merchants laughing all the way to the forum. The trick's in the rhythm, 3 clockwise spins, then a half turn back, lest the stone jam like a chariot axle in mud. A fly drowns in your forehead sweat, its tiny corpse surfing salt currents into your eye. You blink away the sting, focus on the fresco across the street. There's Vulcan hammering Mars's breastplate, same mural you've stared at for 12 harvest seasons. Today the god's hammer seems to strike in time with the millstone's grind. Clang, crunch, clang, crunch. Your apprentice dozes against the flour sacks, snoring louder than the mill itself. You lob a chickpea at his head, watch it vanish into his gaping mouth mid-snore. Fortune favors the sleeping, apparently. The quern spits out its first flower, pale dust rising like the ghosts of 100 harvests. You run a finger through it, gritty and warm as beach sand at midday. They never teach you this part in scribe school, how prosperity measures itself in the fineness of your grind. A successful bakery meant sieving flour 6 times. Your calluses could tell you it's 3 on good days. 2 when customers rush. 3 street dogs materialize at your feet, tails wagging in millstone rhythm. Their noses tilt upward, tracking flour motes like furry philosophers pondering airborne wheat. You toss them a fistful of bran, watch them sneeze in unison. Pompeii's cheapest entertainment. A crack spiders across the millstone's surface, older than your grandfather's war stories. Curse that blacksmith who swore it was freshly quarried last summer. You've patched it with fig sap and desperation, each fissure mirrored in the lines on your palms. The donkey brays outside, your third-hand replacement for yesterday's stolen mule. It circles the mill with all the enthusiasm of a gladiator headed for the arena. Legend says rotating beasts prevent grinding lethargy, though you suspect the beast just hates you personally. Blisters burst on your palms, their sticky betrayal soaking into the lever's wood. You'll find charcoal for tonight's poultice, maybe steal a swig of the wife's honey wine to dull the throb. A baker's hands never truly heal. They just accumulate layers of scars like dough rising. Wind sneaks through the shop's shutters, playing hopscotch with your carefully stacked bran piles. You kick the wall in warning, an old trick that's never worked. Specks swirl into a miniature storm, coating the ledger tablet in edible snow. The tax collector can choke on those numbers. Noon's sun turns the millstone into a frying pan, searing your forearms with every push. You swear you hear sizzling, probably just the wheat cracking under pressure. That butcher's daughter strolls past, her red stola wilting in the heat. Her steps slow near your doorway, pretending to adjust her sandal strap. You flip the lever harder, let the mill's groan drown out your pulse. The flour bin overflows at last, its powdery waves threatening the edge. You skim off the top layer for the senator's order. The rest gets yesterday's ash sifted in. Let his pampered tongue choke on your economy blend. A shadow falls across the mill, the fishmonger's youngest clutching an empty bowl. Her eyes track the spinning stone wide as dinner plates. You scoop flour into her dish with hands that look monstrous next to her tiny fingers. Don't ask about her mother's cough. Some debts taste fouler than spoiled garum. Dust cakes your throat. Each breath feels like inhaling the forum's dry fountains. You'd kill for a sip of watered wine, but the jugs with your sleeping apprentice. Let the boy dream of cool streams and shady groves. You've got grinding to finish. Flames lick at the kiln's brick arch, the same clay ovens found buried under ash 16 centuries later. You feed dried fig branches to the fire, their sweet smoke curling around household gods carved into the wall. Modern experiments show fig wood burns slower than oak. Your ancestors weren't fools about their fuel. The oven coughs ash, its ancient throat clearing like a dyspeptic philosopher. You press your palm against the bricks, still cool from last night's death. A crack snakes up the north wall. Your wife swears fissures predict family fortunes. Today's split looks suspiciously like your uncle's nose after that tavern brawl. First, flames catch, a timid orange glow at the kiln's heart. You blow gently, cheeks puffing like a fishmonger, haggling over mackerel. Heat slaps your face, forearm hairs curling into crispy commas. Someone's hung garlands of bay leaves over the oven, their dried edges whispering secrets to the fire. Dough balls line the counter, pale soldiers waiting for their baptism by fire. You slash their tops with a ritual knife, the crosshatch pattern matching your grandfather's blade work. Historians still argue whether honey glazes were common or just temple offerings. Your thumb swipes stolen sweetness across one loaf. The gods can split the difference. Smoke stings your eyes, nostrils flaring at the scent of burning olive pits mixed with fig. Recycling tonight's trash into tomorrow's kindling. Pompeii's original sustainability program. The oven belches gray plumes. Your neighbor's laundry now sport fashionable ash speckles. Bricks shimmer, heat waves warping the air like drunk lute players. You test the temperature Pompeii-style toss in a palmful of flour and count heartbeats. 3 seconds to brown means ready, 5 means keep your idiot apprentice away from the lever. Lava stones glow like miniature suns, their stolen volcanic heat radiating through the chamber. You balance loaves on a long peel, sliding them into the inferno with practiced flicks. The oven devours 12 at a time, its appetite rivaling the emperor's favorite gladiator. A blister pops on your wrist. Your hiss harmonizes with the fire's crackle. You dunk the wound in salt, the sharp bite grounding you better than any stoic mantra. Years from now, archaeologists will find your carbonized fingerprints pressed into loaves, never knowing which marks came from pain or pride. Smoke tangles with dawn's first light, gray tendrils reaching toward Vesta's temple spire. Your lungs ache with every breath, each wheeze a reminder of the fuller's daughter who refused your cough remedy. The fire demands another fig branch. You snap it like a miser breaking bread. Heat melts the air, your tunic clings like a child scared of Hades' shadows. Sweat drips onto the oven floor, sizzling into tiny vapors that smell suspiciously of yesterday's fish stew. A loaf near the flames darkens too fast. You rescue it with the peel, muttering curses against Hephaestus's spite. The kiln shuddered during last week's earth tremor, its arched back groaning like an overloaded mule. You've reinforced it with iron bands stolen from a bankrupt blacksmith. Tonight it holds steady, heat pulsing in time with your temples. Children's laughter floats through the window, their game of capture Vulcan, involving your abandoned millstone. Let them play. The fire's roar drowns their shrieks. One loaf puffs up comically, a swollen belly of dough mocking your empty stomach. Shadows dance across the shop flames, painting lurid shapes on Venus frescoes. The oven's glow catches your wife's silver bracelets as she enters, their clinking a reproach for burned knuckles and late nights. You wordlessly offer her the honey-glazed loaf, its golden crust a piece offering Aphrodite would approve. Bread sings as it bakes, crackling crusts harmonizing with the fire's bass hum. You close your eyes, translating the sounds like an Etruscan haruspex reading entrails. A high-pitched whistle means nearly done. A deepening rumble whispers, "Feed me more." The 20th batch emerges, gilded your calloused hands, somehow gentle on the peel's worn handle. Steam rises in ghostly columns, carrying the scent of survival toward indifferent heavens. Tomorrow's customers will demand perfection. But for this moment, the heat on your face feels like approval. Your fingers press into the dough's belly, springy resistance, giving way to practiced pressure. Muscle memory takes over, thumbs circling, palms flattening, the rhythm older than your grandfather's chiseled tombstone. Each lump becomes twin sisters, same weight, same dimpled edges, same faint scar from the chipped counter. A child's voice cuts through flour dust air. Papa says our bread tastes like Jupiter's table. You nod, smearing stolen honey beneath a loaf's crust before she notices. Her sandaled feet patter off, leaving smudges in the ash coating your floor. Honey appears in over 80 Pompeian bread recipes, scratched onto tavern walls. But this sweet secret stays between you and Pluto. The dough knife feels hot, its handle warmed by the oven's breath. You score crosses into 9 loaves, blades scraping against clay tablets left to dry in the corner. Historians still debate whether bakers marked dough for gods or impatient customers. The 10th gets a spiral your private joke about Minerva's hangovers. Your pinky brushes something gritty, a crushed oyster shell gleaming in the dough's flesh. Cheapskate grain suppliers bulk their sacks with seabed trash, though some swear shells make crusts crispier. Modern scholars found oyster DNA in 12 Pompeian millstones. Or was that last week's fish stew? Flour moths swirl around your head, their tiny wings casting coin-sized shadows on the dough. You swat at them half-heartedly, knowing they'll outlive your shop's crumbling walls. A loaf tilts drunkenly its base, uneven from that tremor yesterday. You reshape it, fingertips remembering what eyes can't see. The sun climbs higher, its light catching motes of flour, suspended like frozen stars. Your hands move without orders needing, twisting, tucking. Muscle cramps sing in your wrists, an old song about repetition and survival. One colleague adds poppy paste to his dough, swears it makes senators' wives giggle like schoolgirls. You stick to salt. A fly drowns in your water jug, its legs kicking at the surface like tiny oars. You fish it out, toss the corpse to the alley cat, perpetually judging your craftsmanship. Dough balls line up again, soldiers awaiting formation. Their yeasty smell mingles with the butcher's rot next door, Pompeii's signature perfume. The 100th loaf sticks to the board, rebellious gluten clinging like a jealous lover. You unstick it with a wet knife, the blade hissing against sun-warmed clay. Somewhere upstairs your wife argues with a cockroach bold enough to invade her spice cabinet. Let them battle, you've got empires to feed. Heat warps the air, making dough rise faster than gossip at the baths. You pinch off a walnut-sized piece, roll it into the girl's special portion near the oven's edge. Scholars still argue whether child-sized loaves were treats or tragedies. Today, they're hope wrapped in crust. Your thumbnail cracks, a crescent of pain blooming as you fold dough seams. Blood beads, you wipe it on your tunic before it stains the batch. The kiln exhales, smoke curling around your ankles like a stray dog begging scraps. Hands move, dough yields, time dissolves. The 11th hour brings a familiar ache, lower back screaming like a kicked mule. You stretch, vertebrae popping in a language only bread makers understand. 3 more batches, then the Mistral can croak his songs outside someone else's shop. Knead, press, fold. The dance continues. Shadows lengthen across the counter. Each loaf now wears a miniature twilight cloak. You sprinkle sesame seeds over the last batch, their nutty scent promising forgiveness for any underbaked sins. The oven yawns, its fiery mouth ready to swallow another offering. Your fingers hover, blistered skin glowing red in the heat before plunging back to work. Shutters scrape against sun-baked clay. A line already snakes toward the dye shop down the street. Salt-crusted hands thrust forward, 3 coins per loaf. You nod, without meeting bloodshot eyes. The bakery's shadow stretches toward Lupenner's frescoed courtesans, their painted smiles flaking in the heat. A widow slaps down snails still wriggling in her basket. Add time, or I'll tell the Edile about your rat problem. You pocket the mollusks. Her loaf gets an extra flourish of crushed herbs. Pompeii's finest rodent inspector dines on your semolina crackers. Every eye's fair trade for selective blindness. Legionnaires loom like poorly forged spears, their helmets dented from last night's dice game. 10 loaves, hardtack texture, none of that Greek sponge nonsense. You serve them bricks of twice-baked military bread. Historians recently found chunks preserved in barracks, latrines. Their laughter echoes off bathhouse walls, a private joke about centurions and sheep. The fish sauce merchant leans close. His breath could strip paint from marble. Heard about the brothel's new. Wiggles eyebrows toward Lupenner's frescoes. Import from Alexandria. You trade a sesame roll for gossip. The Egyptian dancer turns out to be a Nusairian laundress with good marketing. A sailor drops coins clotted with black pitch. Saw ostriches pulling chariots in Puteoli. You mentally add less wine to his order. Scholars dug up ostrich bones near Pompeii's docks last decade, still debate if they were pets or party props. His bread gets caraway seeds. Maybe they'll soak up the lies. Graffiti winks from your counter's edge, a charcoal phallus beside the words, Antonius sucks. Historians argue whether these scrawls were love notes or curses aimed at cheating merchants. You trace the carving, its curves matching your cousin's terrible handwriting. The senator's steward arrives, purple-striped tunic straining over fried dormouse fat. Only unblemished loaves for Domitius' table. His sandal taps irritation in 4/4 time. You pass him yesterday's rejects, singed edges camouflaged under mint leaves. 3 weeks till election day. He'll be too busy bribing voters to notice. A baker's dozen of children materialize, hands clutching stolen temple flowers. Their payment makes your scales weep, but you take the wilted blossoms anyway. One girl stares at your oven, her face flushed from forum's gossip mill. They say Vulcans under the mountain. You shove a warm roll in her mouth. Quiet costs less than denarii. Noon sun turns your shop into a kiln sweat pools where your sandals grip stone. A Carthaginian trader mutters about bad omens, points to Vesuvius. Hazy silhouette, you smear honey on his flatbread. Sweetness smooths over superstitious rambling. His silver bears Queen Dido's faded profile, barely legal tender, but spendable in the right brothel. The water clock croaks. Its grating voice announces the third hour. You sneak a fig from the offering bowl, juice running down calloused fingers. Across the street, a wool merchant gets caught short-waiting yarn. His yelps mingle with your chewing, Pompeii's lunchtime symphony. A shadow falls across your counter, cold despite the blistering day. The blacksmith's widow extends hands, still streaked with her husband's soot. No words needed. You wrap 2 loaves in reed paper, embossed with morning violets. She leaves an iron nail on the counter, the universal IOU of the desperate. Laughter erupts near the door. A drunkard reenacts Neptune's wedding using bread rolls. His audience tosses olives instead of coins. You let them stay for the shade. One overripe fruit hits your forehead. Its juice mingles with flour to form a makeshift crown. The line thins, only regulars remain. A one-eyed baker from Herculaneum leans on his walking stick. Your leaven's weaker than Bacchus. Willpower. You slide him a sourdough round from your secret starter, the same culture your mother stole from him in 62. Sunlight slants through shuttered windows, golden hour for debt collectors. The taxman's assistant arrives with a wax tablet and zero humor. You count out denarii flecked with oven ash, watch him wipe each coin like it's diseased. 3 more payments, and the shop's lease renews, if the mountain behaves. Doves fight over crumbs beneath your table. Their cooing drowns out the city's buzz. You crumble a barley roll for them, feathers brushing your ankle like whispered secrets. Across the street, the brothel's new Alexandrian import adjusts her wig and winks. The last customer stumbles in cloak reeking of the vomitorium's finest offerings. Need bread for hic altar. You stuff an offering loaf into his arms before he vomits on your yeast culture. His sandals leave dubious stains trailing toward Isis, temple early worshipper or late partier. Shutters grown shut, wood warped from endless openings and closings. Your coin pouch bulges with foreign metals and broken promises. Through a crack, you watch Vesuvius chew on charcoal gray clouds. One hand reaches for the broom, the other steals a sip of cooking wine. A single sesame seed glows on the counter, amber in the dying light. You pop it between your teeth, savoring the silence before dawn replays the madness. Somewhere above the mountain exhales smoke that almost looks like writing. You pretend not to read it, reshaping leftover dough into tomorrow's first loaf before Vesuvius decides to join the party. The flour sack rips with a sound like stale bread crust. Your fingernails split against smuggled gravel. Pebbles skitter across the counter. A dozen tiny betrayals glinting in dawn's weak light. The That grinning Cyrenaican merchant swore this batch came straight from Ostia's docks, pure as Vestal's piss. He'd winked. You curse his ancestors. Technically illegal, since Claudius banned profane grain oaths. But the mice chewing your storeroom don't judge. Wheat shortages forced this dance. 3 ships sank last month, carrying Egyptian imports. Pompeii's mills grind air, while senators hoard sacks like dragon's gold. You sift pebbles with trembling fingers. Sunrise stains the grit bloody red. A professional would use sieves your grandmother just threw suspect flour to pigeons and watched which ones choked. The stolen Nubian strainer gathers dust above the oven too conspicuous for inspections. Instead, you drop a chicken femur into the mound. Historians still argue whether bakers actually used this bone trick to expose theft. But the hollow clunk speaks volumes. 7 pebbles nestle against ivory white bone, a merchant's greed measured in calcium and lies. Your apprentice yawns, barely dodging your pebble-throwing arm. Separate these, make it a game. His groan suggests patricide-level resentment. You soften, slide him honey cake from your secret stash. Workers found similar snacks in Pompeii's mills, petrified raisins still clinging to clay shards. Customers arrive with empty bellies and full suspicion. A butcher slaps down rancid fat wrapped in palm leaves. Better trade than your gritty shitbread. You accept it, roast the lard into something resembling edible. His loaf gets extra pebbles, a silent fuck you baked right in. The grain inspector's wife shuffles in her perfume, a wall of rose oil and guilt. She requests unusually light loaves, code for stealing temple flour. You triple charge her bargaining chips grow scarce in drought years. Her coin purse surrenders silver, stamped with Nero's bloated face, still warm from some bureaucrat's bed. Midday brings a parade of hollow cheeks, dockworkers who can't afford the grain dole. You have loaves, watch calloused hands cradle portions like newborn chicks. A sailor's toddler tries eating pebbles. You swap them for dried figs from your lunch. His giggle tastes sweeter than any prophet. News arrives via trembling lips. The Cyrenaican merchant's body found in Sarno River. Lungs full of millstones, a fish seller whispers. You hide your shaking hands, feign surprise. The mouse squad scuttles to your doorstep, their tiny noses twitching at the lie. Sunset finds you bartering with the black market. 3 sacks of weevilled grain for your daughter's ivory comb. The dealer's laugh reveals gold-capped molars. Next week, your firstborn. You spit in his shadow. The insult evaporates before it lands. Moonlight crystallizes your shame. Pebbles gleam like accusation on the work table. You slip them into a votive jar, offerings to Mercury the trickster. Somewhere beyond Vesuvius, shadow, a merchant's ghost licks his wounds. The kiln exhales ash. It coats your tongue like stolen flour. Morning light claws through smoke-stained shutters. Your hands already crusted with pebbled flour. The stolen Nubian sieve mocks you from its hook. Too risky to use with the grain inspector's sudden visits. You resort to grandmother's method, tossing fistfuls of grain onto the counter. A chicken bone clatters down, pilfered from last night's stew. Historians still argue whether Roman bakers truly used this trick to expose gravel fraud, but you're too desperate for pride. Grain cascades around the femur. 3, 7, 11 pebbles reveal themselves. Each stone carries a merchant's laugh, your coin purses growing lighter with every shipment. You pocket the evidence, future bargaining chips against that swindler from Puteoli. Across town, mills charge double to screen grain. Your profit margins couldn't survive the fee. The apprentice's shadow darkens your counting. Thought this was Egyptian wheat. He pokes a pebble blood blooming where it nicked his thumb. You shove honeyed wine at him, an unspoken apology. Workers in Herculaneum's bakeries faced worse. Archaeologists found oyster shells mixed into their flour stocks last month. Hunger makes recipes creative. Customers arrive with tightened belts and sharper tongues. A fish salter slams dried mackerel on your counter, trade for bread that won't break my wife's teeth. You detect no pity in his eyes, only survival math. His loaf gets one fewer pebble than the rest, small mercies in smaller betrayals. Midday brings the clatter of official sandals. The grain inspector's assistant sniffs your stock, his stylus hovering over wax tablets. Here Ostia's mills are selling gravel as bread tax. You shrug. Innocence costs more than guilt these days. He accepts your gift of fig-stuffed rolls, their centers mercifully stone-free. Heat amplifies every smell, burnt crusts, blending with street sewage. A widow slips you millet wrapped in linen from my brother's farm beyond Nuceria. You hesitate. Millet's illegal for bread by senatorial decree. But her hollow cheeks decide it. The dough grows darker, safer, sadder. Dockworkers demand their usual barley loaves. You serve wheat instead. The switch goes unnoticed, their palates dulled by hunger and fish sauce. One man samples his portion, squints tastes like my wife's pregnancy cravings. You choke on a laugh, salt, and shame bitter on your tongue. Sunset finds you bartering with a Sicilian trader, his mule cart stacked with suspiciously smooth grain sacks. He swears by Vulcan's forge, no impurities. You bite a kernel, your molar cracks on a pebble, disguised as wheat. The haggling turns violent. His dagger nicks your vendor's permit. Nightfall brings an unexpected visitor, the grain inspector himself, reeking of cheap perfume. Heard you've got innovative quality checks. He eyes the chicken bone still on your counter. Your denial dies as he pockets the pebble collection. Evidence requires proper storage. His wink mirrors the Cyrenaican merchants. Crooked grins transcend social class. You burn the remaining tainted flour beneath a full moon, the smoke forming spirals that could be curses or prayers. A mouse drags a pebble into its whole tiny justice against an empire's rot. The noon sun bleaches Pompeii's streets to bone white, your clay countertop hot enough to sear dough. Coins left by customers hiss against the stone tiny metal pancakes, begging to be flipped. You wipe sweat from your brow, the linen headband already soaked through. Some bakers rigged awnings over their storefronts, but yours blew away in last month's storm. History remembers Roman shops as shaded oases. They forgot the small-time bakers roasting like chestnuts. A drunk stumbles through your doorway reeking of fermented fish sauce and poor decisions. He collapses against your grain sacks, snoring echoes battling the oven's rumble. You debate kicking him, but the midday lull means free security. Let him drool on the lentils, better than chasing thieves in this heat. Your amphora of vinegar water grows warm. Drinking it feels like swallowing a bathhouse. Pompeii's elite nap through this hour, their marble fountains trickling lies about coolness. You squint at lead water pipes running past your shop, taunting relics of a civic project abandoned decades back. Most bakers faced the street full frontal. Archaeologists found counters angled to catch sea breezes near the forum. Your stall got the architectural equivalent of spoiled bread, a walled-in oven nook even Hades would avoid. The drunk mutters about Minerva's tits. His sandal slips into the fire pit. You rescue it with a long peel, blackened leather, joining the symphony of stenches. 5-star accommodations. You grumble arranging his limbs to prevent asphyxiation. Workers at the Macelum market ice their feet in brine troughs. You've got a kitchen tools grip for ankles. A regular arrives, her face wrapped like a mummy against the dust. Juno's breath. Did Vulcan forge your loyalty to this oven? She fans herself with a wax tablet, its tax records fluttering dangerously close to coals. You slide her a barley roll stuffed with cooled porridge breakfast, resurrected as lunch. Historians still argue whether midday closures were standard. Try telling that to the legionnaire expecting fresh bread at sundown. The drunk's snores hit a new octave. You counter with a broom handle to his ribs. He gasps upright, eyes bloodshot moons in a flour-dusted face. Apollo's chariot crash here. His gaze darts to your sweating jug. You charge him double before he asks. He pays in lead tokens, probably stolen from the bath's locker room. Shadows finally stretch long enough to matter. Your shadow puppet show almost justifies the misery. A rat drags a fig leaf across the floor, nature's parody of a parasol. You dump yesterday's ash into the street, gray snow melting into nothing. The drunk leaves singing off-key hymns to Bacchus, his voice trailing like smoke up Vesuvius's slopes. You press a vinegar-soaked cloth to your neck, the sting almost refreshing. One scroll claims Egyptian bakers wore damp reed headdresses. Yours reeks like a pickle vendor's downfall. A child's clay doll bakes on the kiln's edge, left as payment by a widow last week. Its smile cracks wider in the heat, a tiny mirror of your own grimace. The hour crawls by, each minute a grain stuck between molars. You count fly carcasses in the windowsill, 18 fallen soldiers of the heat rebellion. Their general buzzes near the oil lamp, soon to join the ranks. The street outside shimmers, a mirage of the Stabian baths. Promised coolness, you'll trade tomorrow's profits for 5 minutes in their plunge pool. Maybe 2 copper coins would convince the custodian. A centurion's shout slices through the haze, his armor clanking like a bad omen. You brace for another emergency bread levy, his men's appetites legendary as their incompetence. But he marches past, too focused on berating a wine merchant. The reprieve tastes sweeter than honeycake, though you'll regret that comparison when baking tomorrow's batch. Dusk approaches, the drunk's lingering stench your only companion. You sweep salt over the threshold, a feeble shield against tomorrow's furnace. Somewhere beyond these walls, nobles feast on peacocks stuffed with dates. Here, your feast is a lukewarm fig, its split skin mirroring your cracked lips. The kiln coughs its final ember, a dying star in your personal galaxy of sweat. Your broom stills as the widow's shadow crosses the threshold, her veil fluttering like a wounded moth. She smells of myrrh and freshly turned earth, morning perfumes that can't hide the thyme sprigs in her basket. For the loaf, she murmurs, fingers trembling as they brush yours. You pretend not to notice the love bite blooming above her collarbone, still purple as a summer fig. Her husband's tombstone was inscribed yesterday. The stonemason's chisel marks fresh as the scandal. Roman law demands 10 months mourning before remarrying, but her lover's sandalwood scent clings to her stola. You crush time between your palms, its piney sharpness cutting through the oven's lethargy. Some claim the herb summons spirits. You wonder which ghost she's trying to attract. The dough accepts the leaves greedily, green flecks disappearing into the fold. Her coin purse hesitates before opening. A silver denarius bearing Nero's smirk slips into your palm. Historians still argue whether household altars belonged in bakeries. You nod to Isis's shrine in the corner. The widow's eyes follow yours, her lips shaping silent thanks to foreign gods. Her loaf emerges golden thyme oil glistening like tears in the crust. You wrap it in fig leaves before she can change her mind. The scent alone could convict her. Pompeii's gossips track infidelity by pantry ingredients. She tucks the bread beneath her veil, a pregnant bulge more damning than any lover's note. Outside, a street vendor hawks garum, his voice sharp as the fermented fish stench. You watch the widow vanish toward the necropolis, her steps suspiciously light for a grieving spouse. A scrap of papyrus drifts from her basket. You burn it unread. Let the dead keep their secrets, the living pay better. The kiln fire pops, Isis's honeycake blackens at the edges. You leave it as offering anyway. Rebellions come in sizes, some need swords, others just time. The clatter of hobnailed boots drowns the widow's fading footsteps, a century approaching in unnerving lockstep. Their scarlet cloaks flap like wounded birds, the stench of iron and sour wine clinging to their armor. You wipe flour-streaked hands on your apron, salt-crusted eyes scanning for the centurion's vine stick. Always better to spot the commander first. Men with power love being recognized. 5 dozen loaves, barks the officer, his voice cracking like an adolescent's. His men slump against your counter, spear butts, denting clay jars of olives. You count 30 hungry faces, legionnaires smell like a forge and desperation. One's shield strapped to his pack still smokes slightly. You've heard stories about battlefields doubling as makeshift kitchens. Their purses clink with salt pellets. The original soldiers pay before coins corrupted everything. You pretend not to notice shoulders dipping into the grain sacks, thieveries, and art when you're half-starved. The centurion's thumb rubs his signet ring, a nervous habit you've seen in every officer since the Gaul campaigns. Barley loaves, he snaps, as though arguing with unseen critics. Historians still argue whether Hadrian's troops preferred gritty emmer or sweet spelt. You're just trying to not burn 12 loaves at once. A scarred veteran leans too close. His breath reeks of garum and bad luck. Heard about the 3rd Legion, he whispers. Swallowed whole by Egyptian sands, right down to their precious eagle standard. You slide him an extra roll. Some tailies deserve payment. The centurion's coin pouch lands with a thud. You've seen lighter shipment anchors. Counting silver feels like herding cats. Denarii from 8 provinces clatter across the counter. Macedonian owls stare blankly. Syrian coins still sticky with temple incense. A private barely older than your son fumbles his javelin, wood clattering on your mosaic of Ceres. His face burns crimson as he retrieves it. You toss him a honey cake. For courage, you mutter. He pockets it like contraband, hoping his mates won't notice. They leave as violently as they arrived, a whirlwind of misplaced threats and backslapped jokes. You find a dagger embedded in your dough trough, its owner long vanished down Mercury Street. The blade's handle bears crude carvings, a phallus, and what might be a lion. Legionnaires' humor rarely improves with age. The counter reeks of their passing leather, lard, and the particular musk of unwashed ambition. You splash vinegar water across the stones, watching it foam around their boot prints. Outside, the century marches west, their song about a two-there tavern girl drifting back through your shutters. 9 missing spoons, 3 dented amphorae, and a single silver denarius pressed into the counter's wax Nero, face staring up like a bad omen. You sweep it into the Isis shrine. Let the goddess deal with guilty consciences. Sunlight glints off the abandoned dagger. You test its edge against a crust, honed sharp enough to slice truth from lies, or carrots, tomorrow's problem. For now, you rub liniment into your flour-raw hands, the kiln's embers winking like drunken stars. The water jug betrays you first, a hollow gurgle where cool liquid should sing. You append it. Only a single drop clings to the rim like a coward. Outside, the courtyard wells rope groans under empty leather. Your neighbor Horatius paces nearby, his shadow darting like a spooked cat. Cracked since the nones, he hisses, aqueducts failing faster than Caesar's marriage vows. You peer down the shaft, distant moonlight glints on bone-dry stone. Pompeii's engineers swore these channels would outlast the gods themselves, but tonight their pride lies shattered 30 feet below. Horatius fidgets with a bullish arm, its dented bronze warm from a lifetime of panic. My boy swears he saw nymphs poisoning the springs, he mutters, says their hair glittered like dead fish scales. Your own son hovers in the doorway, amphory, already strapped to his bony shoulders. His knees buckle under the weight. They shouldn't make pottery that outsizes children. You adjust the straps. Your fingers brush a scar from last summer's kiln accident. Stick to the decumanous, you warn. Avoid the shortcut past Trimalchio's tomb. He nods, too tired for 7-year-old bravado. The Sarnus River's whisper mocks you from 8 blocks east. You calculate the trip. 12 amphory times 3 trips equals a sleepless dawn. Historians still argue whether Roman engineers prioritized speed over safety right now. You trade both for one reliable cistern. Horatius offers a wineskin. It's 90% vinegar. But beggars can't whine about aftertaste. Your sandals kick up dust. With every step, parched air claws at your throat. A rat darts across the moonlit street, its ribcage heaving like bellows. You passed 23 shrines to Neptune on this road. None seem inclined to help tonight. The riverbank reeks of dead shellfish and regret. Filling the first amphory feels like cheating fate. Water sloshes over your feet like a toddler's tantrum. Across the black current, a muffled splash hints at smugglers or suicidal fish. You ignore both. Pompeii's underworld problems stay on the far shore. The amphory grow heavier. With each scoop, your lower back sings a funeral dirge. Halfway home, a familiar laugh freezes your blood. Gallus, the tax collector, leans against Crassus's sundial, his toga suspiciously dry for midnight. Thirsty work, he purrs. His attendant holds a jug carved from Numidian marble, probably your last season's profits in stone. You clutch the amphory tighter, vows to Jupiter taste like ash in your mouth. The shop feels different upon return, emptier despite the water. Your son sleeps curled by the oven, a living comma in this endless sentence. You splash your face, river grit scrubs your skin raw. 3 more trips. 5. 7. Dawn finds you knee-deep in dough and exhaustion. Customers arrive thirsty. They'll complain about gritty bread and never ask why. You let them. The aqueduct remains silent, but the river's still laughing, its muddy joke echoing in every loaf. The oven's betrayal comes not with a roar, but a whimper. A whisper of smoke curling where golden crusts should bloom. You freeze mid-stretch. Charred bitterness floods your nostrils before your eyes confirm it. Heat radiates through the kiln's bricks, a feverish pulse mocking your oversight. 3 loaves cling to the rack, their blackened backs curled like dead spiders. Cursing Vulcan feels too obvious. You aim higher. Juno's peacocks could have warned me. You mutter, gods love avian tattletales. The shovel scrapes as you scoop the ruins, each scrape echoing former glories. Romans baked their failures into history. Pompeii's streets still bear imprints of overdone rolls from centuries past. The garden soil swallows your shame, ash blending with ash beneath the fig tree. Each thrust of the spade unearths pottery shards, yesterday's dishes, becoming tomorrow's fossils. You pause, a shard's edge still shows Minerva's owl painted mid-blink. Historians will someday debate whether bakers buried burnt bread as offerings, or just hid their fuck-ups with dirt. A neighbor's rooster crows as you pat down the grave. Your fingers recall the dough's last moments, how fire kissed it too hungrily. Vestas, priestesses, used to burn 9-day-old loaves as divine sponges, absorbing temple floors' grime. You wonder if the gods prefer their sacrifices well done or bloody rare. Mid-burial, your heel crushes a basil plant. Its sweet stench clings like a jealous lover. Perfect, you grumble the garden now reeks of pesto and defeat. A passing slave eyes your soot-streaked tunic. Her smirk says every bakery's got its pyromaniac phase. You toss her a fig. Silence costs less than gossip. Dust clings to your lashes as you retreat inside. The kiln's glow winks like a conspirator. Through the haze, Vesuvius looms, its peak veiled in what might be clouds or smoke. You need fresh dough, fingertips pressing harder than necessary. Outside, the buried loaf cools, its carbonized heart beating in time with the mountain's hidden fire. The silk hits your nose first, jasmine, and myrrh cutting through the dough's yeasty breath. She stands framed in the doorway, sunlight glinting off 100 glass perfume vials sewn into her stola. You blink, those shimmering threads aren't wool or linen. Real Chinese silk, 3 months, profits coiled around her shoulders, and enough makeup to paint a fresco. Her sandal taps the threshold. Father says you're discreet. The words drip honey, but her eyes dart to the empty street. You wipe flower hands on your apron, watching gold earrings sway as she leans closer. Senators once tried banning silk for corrupting morals. Probably jealous, their wives looked like sacks of garum in comparison. She slides a figwood box across the counter. The lid creaks open to reveal Syrian dates. I need these blended in. Her nail traces a loaf's scored surface, leaving a crescent moon indentation. Your thumb rubs the dent smooth. The motion hides a smirk. Patrician girls aren't supposed to crave anything sweeter than politics. Special occasion. You fold a dough edge, watching her reflection in the olive oil jar. She stiffens, perfume spiking like burnt sugar. Historians still argue whether Roman bakers used imported spices or just local honey. Let them debate. Your mortar already grinds cinnamon stolen from a Nubian sailor's cargo hold. Coins clink onto the counter, denarii stamped with Vespasian's dour face. Enough to buy a donkey or 3 months of lentils. You pocket them slow, let her sweat. Outside, a vendor hawks garum fish sauce, his cry muffled by her choked whisper. He's leaving for Ostia at dawn. The dates dissolve into the dough, sticky sweetness binding your fingers. She hovers near the kiln, careful not to singe her hems. You remember the dyers' riots last spring, how townsfolk smashed looms weaving indecent sheer silks. Yet here she stands a moth drawn to the oven's flame. The loaf emerges glistening, honey glaze pooling in its spiral grooves. She hesitates, then snatches it barehanded. A hiss escapes her lips, pain and triumph twisted together. Before leaving, she presses something into your palm, a scrap of papyrus smelling of rosewater. Burn it, she demands, already vanishing down the alley. You uncurl your fingers. A love poem, or maybe a shipping manifest. The kiln devours it eagerly. Outside, Vesuvius yawns, its smoky breath staining the horizon. You count coins again, wondering how much truth weighs against a week's bread. The kiln's afterglow warms your knuckles as you sweep charred papyrus flakes into the ashes. Outside, a shuffling rhythm interrupts your work, sandals dragging across paving stones like a damaged lyre. You glance up, sun-bleached rags emerge from the alley. His feet sport more cracks than your clay oven toenails, blackened from sleeping in Fuller's urine vats. Spare a crust for old Felix. He extends a palm, calluses map a life of lifted purses. You raise the broom like a staff, remembering last week's missing almond cake. His grin reveals 3 teeth and a shriveled fig clutched between index and thumb. Trade. The fruit's wrinkled flesh oozes sticky sap, a street snack for the truly desperate. You squint, his other hand twitches toward the half-eaten loaf, cooling on the counter. Digestive biscuits made from bran and sawdust might have been Roman breakfast staples, but this beggar's playing a sharper game. News first. Your knife hovers over the bread, blade catching the afternoon light. He licks cracked lips, eyes darting to the alley's mouth. Some scholars claim Pompeii's beggars formed intelligence networks, rivaling the vigils. But you've never seen proof beyond stolen sausages. The fig trembles. Boats, he coughs, a rasping sound like gravel in a bronze sieve. Pulling anchor early. Dockmaster's boy saw gulls fleeing west. His free hand mimes wings flapping, nearly dropping his bargaining chip. Fishing nets coming up empty since the kalends. You slice the loaf, sawing through caraway seeds that were supposed to hide the flour's grit. The blade stops halfway. His breath hitches. For 3 generations, your family's fed drifters in exchange for whispered warnings. An unbroken chain stretching back to your great-grandfather's encounter with a soothsayer who paid in snail shells. How empty crumbs scatter as you twist the knife. He inches closer, reeking of soured wine and donkey dung. Some say Rome's poor survived on handouts of pannies grattles, thin bread soaked in vinegar. But desperation breeds creativity. You once caught a street urchin boiling leather sandals for broth. Whole fleets returning with holds bare. His gaze flicks to Vesuvius, its peak veiled in haze. Merchants whispering about unnatural tides. A twitch ripples through his shoulder, a nervous tick, or the onset of morbus commercialis. The jury's out whether ancient Romans recognized epilepsy as anything but divine punishment. You tear off a hunk, steam rising like a spectral hand. He pounces, fig thrust forward like a diplomat's offering. The exchange happens in silence, a dance perfected by hungry souls. Historians still argue whether street vendors used urine as leavening agent during grain shortages. You pray today's batch is ammonia-free. The beggar retreats, gnawing bread with rodent-like urgency. His sandal catches on a loose stone, spitting curses that would make a legionnaire blush. The fig sits heavy in your palm, its stem oozing fermented syrup. A single bite floods your mouth with sweetness verging on rot, nature's lesson on attractive exteriors. From the street, a donkey brays. Vesuvius exhales another plume, ash mingling with furnace smoke. You brush flour from your tunic, fingers lingering on the fig's puckered skin. Somewhere beyond the city walls, waves churn against abandoned nets. The knife finds its groove again, slicing lies from truth, one ragged edge at a time. The fig's aftertaste clings to your tongue as you stoke the kiln-charred edges of yesterday's loaves, crumbling like ancient scrolls. Flames surge, a greedy tongue licking the brick arch. Your left palm hovers too close, distracted by the beggar's warnings about empty nets and fleeing gulls. Heat sears flesh, a viper-strike pain shooting up your arm. You jerk back, knuckles raking across the oven's jagged maw. Blood beads bright against soot-blackened skin. Pluto's breath. The curse hisses through your teeth, a prayer and profanity in one. You fumble for the water jug, its surface filmed with flour dust. Roman bakers often sustained these burns their forearms, mapping decades of close calls. Modern reconstructions show Vespasian era. Ovens hit 700 degrees, enough to bake bread and stupidity. A customer coughs at the counter, your apprentice gaping at the blisters rising like bread dough. Ignore the show. You snap, wrapping the hand in linen, stained by last week's wine. Some Pompeian graffiti warns of the oven's kiss, but you'd always assumed it was metaphor. A fragmentary papyrus suggests using honeyed bandages, though whether that prevented infection or just attracted ants remains unclear. The kneading trough mocks you, its dough pit expanding like a yawn. You plunge your good hand into the mound, flour gritting between fingers. Heat throbs in time with your pulse. Historians still argue whether repetitive burns led to the calloused hands visible on baker skeletons found near the Porta Ercolano. You've got your own theory. Infinite patience plus infinite heat equals infinite stupidity. Your wife's voice cuts through the pain. Let me see. She unwinds the sodden bandage, clucking like a temple hen. Her thumbs work chamomile paste into the wound, a recipe from her Sicilian grandmother. The scent of crushed flowers battle's oven reek. You focus on her braid, coarser than hemp rope, as she mutters about men and hubris. By midday, the linen tightens, dried herbs cracking like distant laughter. Customers come and go, their eyes lingering on your mummified hand. A fish sauce merchant jokes about oven tax. You retaliate by forgetting his usual bread discount. Fire crackles, your skin burns. The rhythm of shaping loaves continues. Twilight brings cooler air, and the blacksmith's wife seeking her husband's rye loaf. She eyes your bandage. Third this month. Her laugh reminds you of grinding stones. You shrug, handing over bread still warm enough to melt garum. Her coin clicks against others in the offering box. A symphony of survival. The last embers fade as you count profits, fingers stumbling over bronze asses. Your palm pulses like a second heartbeat. Moonlight between roof tiles paints stripes on the scar you'll name Vesuvius, a ragged monument to baked hubris. Somewhere beyond the city, the sea keeps dragging its empty nets. But your oven still breathes, your hands still work, and tomorrow's hunger arrives right on schedule. The bread bell's clang startles a pigeon roosting on your awning, its wings showering dust, motes that glitter like misplaced stars. Your bandaged palm rasps against the kneading table linen fibers, catching on dough's sticky skin. Across the counter, Marcellus leans, his toga stained by last night's wine, and this morning's poor decisions. Heard the one about Neptune's bald head. He grins, missing a tooth where a loaf once met his face. You flick flour at him. Only 73 times. Ah, but 74's the charm. He clears his throat like an orator addressing the forum. Why'd Neptune shave his beard? Because his seahorses kept calling him Grandpa. Your snort sends a flour cloud swirling. It settles on Octavia, the fishmonger scowling by the olive jars. Her usual glare softens, a chuckle escaping like a trapped sparrow. Stupid, she mutters, though her knife stops hovering over your thumb. Laughter trickles through the shop, a contagion more potent than the pox. Even the stone-faced grain merchant cracks a smile, his ledger forgotten, as he mimes Neptune, combing non-existent hair. Historians still argue whether irreverent god jokes flourished here, or if decorum crumbled faster than overbaked crust. You've seen the proof. A graffiti-scrawled Neptune near the baths, his trident replaced with a comb. Marcellus slaps the counter, olive oil leaping from its dish. Another, why'd Venus hate bakeries? She couldn't handle the heat, croaks old Gallus from his corner stool, breadcrumbs quivering in his beard. The room erupts. Your ribs ache from laughing, or maybe from hefting 60-pound grain sacks since dawn. A legate's servant edges in armor clanking, his scowl wilting under the crowd's mirth. You slide him a honeyed roll shaped like a laurel wreath. On the house, his stiff nod loosens, a half smile betraying his rank. Someone hums a tavern ditty, sandals tap against flagstones. For 3 stolen heartbeats, the shop feels like Saturnalia. Your wife thwacks a dough ball onto the counter, the smack silencing the room. Enough laziness, her mock glare sweeps the crowd. Unless you're paying in jokes now. Coins clatter into the offering box, a bronze rain punctuated by Marcellus' exaggerated bow. Octavia tosses a sardine atop her payment, its dead eye judging your life choices. You pocket it anyway. Hunger trumps pride, and the cat's been looking thin. Warmth lingers after the door shutters closed, sunlight painting the flour-dusted floor gold. Your ruined palm itches beneath its wrap. Pompeians loved this, the way bread could turn strangers into kin, if only until the crumbs vanished. Modern ovens lack the magic, though scholars will insist it's just yeast chemistry. You know better. The millstone creaks, its rhythm syncing with distant waves. Somewhere beyond the docks, fishermen mend nets and retell the same stupid jokes. You hum along, because laughter's the real leavening agent, and Marcellus owes you 43 denarii. The millstone's rhythm falters as a shadow blocks the doorway, young Gaius shifting foot to foot like a guilty crab. Sweat glistens above his lip, that patchy beard doing nothing to hide his twitching jaw. His cloak bulges suspiciously, corners of a grain sack poking through threadbare wool. Uncle Marcus said you need wheat. The title's false. No blood ties, just street kinship forged by empty bellies. You glance at your own nearly bare shelves. Vesuvius's ash cloud choked last season's harvest. Now every baker from here to Neapolis hoards like misers. The law's clear. Receiving stolen grain means one hand less to knead dough. But hunger's law laughs at scrolls and seals. Gaius edges closer, reeking of scared goat and poor decisions. From the Capitolium stores, he whispers, guards won't miss 3 sacks. He names a price low enough to coil in your gut like rancid oil. Historians still argue whether Rome's grain thefts stemmed from rebellion or ruthless pragmatism. Right now, you're leaning toward survival. Your wife's voice drifts from the back room, singing off-key to the twins. The tune scratches at old memories, your father bartering rotten figs during the Sicilian famine. Take it, you growl, the words sour as week-old leaven. Gaius hesitates, eyes darting to the street, before dumping the grain into your empty bin. The kernels sparkle like accusation, made edible. Rumor says they once caught a grain thief by dripping eel bile on suspects' hands. If flour stuck, guilt was proven. You scrub your palms raw anyway. The sack stitching bears a faded SPQR stamp mocking you from the shadows. Necessity's a harsh teacher. It schools your fingers to mix stolen wheat with legitimate chaff. Dust motes swirl as you pour the grain, each golden cascade hissing criminal, criminal, criminal. Neighborly trust is cheap here. Even the stray dog noses through trash for scraps. You wonder if Gaius skimmed his cut already. The boy's sandals leave hurried prints in spilled flour, fugitive shapes, vanishing into the afternoon glare. Your wife emerges, flour-dusted lashes narrowing at the overflowing bin. The blacksmith's deal. Better, you lie the words ash thick. She sniffs the air, Pompeii's mix of fish sauce and rosewater, then nods. Her trust weighs heavier than the grain. By sunset, 38 loaves brown in the kiln, their scent masking the guilt kneaded into every fold. You tell yourself the Senate's stores were bloated anyway. Across the street, the fishmonger's cat yowls, a sound like rusty hinges. You toss it a crust from the stolen batch. Let the gods sort out whose sin belongs to your family's hunger. Won't wait for tribunals. Your elbows brush the flour-crusted counter as shadows stretch across Via della Bendanza. The crowd's murmurs swelling into a hungry chorus. Coins clink like teeth against bronze. A merchant waves oyster shells of garum vinegar to cut the heat. 2 panes quadratus. Demands a legionnaire still speckled with Bithynian mud. You slide him raisin-studded military loaves, their edges blackened from hasty baking. A matron slaps down 3 sesterces, her wig tilting like Vesuvius's crooked peak. No barley today, she barks, as if you control drought-stricken fields. Your knife trembles on the scoring string, but the scent of burnt honeycake distracts her. Historians still argue whether Roman market crowds were civil or just better at hiding their elbows. The fish sauce seller beside you douses his stall in mint water too late. Flies swarm your counter, landing on crumbs with imperial entitlement. You flick one off a sesame roll. It circles back like a persistent tax collector. Bread's warmer than my marriage bed. Joke's a regular, his 6th visit this week. Laughter ripples, briefly thinning the tension. A slave girl stretches on tiptoe, her reed basket barely clearing the ledge. She mouths one as loaf, but drops 2 coins. You pretend not to notice her shaking hands. Pompeii's bakers used counterweighted bronze scales for fairness. But hunger bends principles softer than fresh dough. The olivesseller's donkey brays. Its complaint drowns your guilt. This denarius is lead. You snap scraping fake silver off a Pompeian redware plate. The would-be thief snarls, revealing garlic-stained teeth. His toga's hem phrase, threads clutching his dignity like a drowning man. Counterfeit coins, haunted markets, greedy mintmen coating lead discs in precious metal skins. You toss him a stale crust. Apollo bless your next scheme. Twilight stains the sky wine dark. Oil lamps flicker to life. 8 flatbreads. A cook shouts, charred knuckles gripping stew-spattered amphory. Your son darts between knees, with a tray, his bare feet avoiding dropped chickpeas. A drunk's lute screeches, a sour note scattering pigeons into the indigo haze. The magistrate's steward looms, trimmed beard quivering with disdain. Senator's table requires honey-glazed libum. His sandal taps the mosaic floor, Mars battling a giant in cracked tesserae. You offer him yesterday's cooling cake, repurposed with fresh figs. He sniffs, but takes it. Even arrogance bows to time's press. Last light catches a nun's veil, the temple of Isis's priestess lingering by fig baskets. She slides you a clay token carved with ears of wheat, offerings to Serapis, required unleavened bread. But tonight's batch flaunts extra leaven. You wrap her order in linen, feigning ignorance of forbidden yeast. The final loaf, a misshapen thing crusted with rosemary, sits orphaned on the shelf. A beggar's gnarled finger points. That one. His voice cracks like an old kiln brick. You hand it over his palm, leaves a charcoal smear on your wrist. He nods, a silent trade of dignity for warmth. Empty sacks slump where flour mounds once ruled. Your wife sweeps the counter, bristles, scratching over wine stains and knife marks. The night's first star blinks above Vesuvius, its light too faint to read the ledger. You count coins by touch, their edges worn smooth as a politician's promise. Silence pools where chaos reigned. Even the flies retreat sated. The millstone waits, a drowsy sentinel coated in ghostly powder. Your knuckle traces a fresh scratch on the counter. Tomorrow's problem. Somewhere beyond the shuttered windows, Pompeii inhales. Moonlight stripes the counter through shutter cracks, each beam illuminating dust, motes still swirling from today's chaos. Your fingernail digs flour from the ledger's grooves, counting by the faint glow of a sputtering oil lamp. 37 sesterces clink into the salt-glazed jar, its rim chipped from the time your wife tried silencing a rowdy customer. A mouse skitters across the mosaic, its shadow stretching into a monster on the oven wall. You toss it a crumb, watch the tiny jaws work faster than a senator evading taxes. Roman accounting often used wax tablets, but flour and ash make cheaper ink. The numbers blur 3 amphorae of grain unaccounted for. You blame the heat, the flies, the ghost that supposedly haunts Via della Fortuna. The water jugs, shadow creeps across the floor, marking hours like a sundial for insomniacs. Historians still argue whether Pompeian bakers doctored their ledgers, but your columns add up neat as parade formations. Mostly, a moth dive bombs the lamp, its wings singed before veering into the darkness. Your knuckle traces tomorrow's flour order, the figures tight as a gladiator's breastplate. Beneath the counter, sticky wine residue glues a denarius to the wood. You pry it loose, a victory. 9th Legions, eagle stares up from the coin, wings spread like it's trying to escape. Some swear bread dough, mended roof tiles in a pinch. You've yet to test that theory. The salt box sits alarmingly light. Tomorrow's bargaining at the forum will need sharp elbows. Your sandal grinds against a chickpea, launching it into the void beneath the millstone. The shop exhales, wood creaking, as Vesuvius's breeze tousles the hanging herb bundles. That missing sack of spelt gnaws at you, maybe stolen, maybe miscounted. Mice can't haul that much. Can they? A dog barks 3 streets over its echo bouncing past brothels and bathhouses, gone quiet. You etch a tiny Isis symbol beside the wine expenses, just in case. 14 copper, asses short, but the senator's steward overpaid yesterday. Balance achieved through bureaucratic chaos. The lamp wick sputters, its death rattle painting shadows that twist into familiar shapes. There, the hunched baker; there, the greedy moneylender. You blow it out, letting moonlight reclaim the room. Some claim full moon's spoiled dough, but your sourdough starter thrives on rebellion. Dawn's first blush tinges the eastern sky, the numbers finally settled. Profit enough for new sandals, maybe a bronze scraper to replace the cracked bone one. Your spine cracks as you stand. A percussion section, ending tonight's symphony. The ledger snaps shut, its secrets safe, until the sun betrays them. The amphora's weight strains your arms as you hoist it, olive oil sloshing against clay like a ship in stormy seas. Your sandal slips on a chickpea remnant, heel sliding, until you brace against the hearth. That leftover fig tart tempts from the counter, 3 days stale, but still winking like a Venus street courtesan. A cat yowls outside, some territorial spat over fish guts, as you rub sleep grit from your eyes. The first tremor hits as you're stacking jars, a faint rumble deeper than cartwheels on basalt stones. Dried herbs rain from their hooks, rosemary needles dusting your hair like fragrant ash. Historians still argue whether Pompeians recognized these quakes as warnings. You blame the wine merchant's overburdened mule team. A cup tips, oil spreads across the counter, liquid amber, swallowing a breadcrumb fleet. Your neighbor's donkey brays, its panic sharp as a slave driver's whip. Across the street, Terentius curses, his prized Greek vase shattering on the atrium floor. You steady the grain sacks, fingers clawing at rough hemp, as the earth groans like a titan shifting position. Faint screams trickle from the baths. A mosaic cupid loses his arrow in the chaos. When stillness returns, your hands won't stop vibrating phantom tremors or adrenaline. The oil puddle ripples once more, you swear it does, before settling into a guilty mirror. Workers repaired the temple of Isis after the last big quake, using volcanic cement that outlived their gods. A spider abandons its web above the oven, silken threads swaying like Vestal virgin's hair. Earth's just stretching. A potter yells from his workshop, voice too cheerful by half. You force a laugh, louder than needed, while eyeing the millstone's stability. Some claimed bread dough could patch cracked walls. You'd rather trust Vesuvius's mercy. Priests will crow about divine displeasure, tax collectors about repair fees. Your feet already ache at the thought. A single as coin rolls into the oil slick, tails up, Neptune's trident glinting through gold. Good luck or bad. The market chronicles mention tavern bets on seismic dice, but those ledgers burned in the Nuceria fire. You pocket it anyway. Defiance tastes sweeter than honey cake when the altar donations start. Through the doorway, Vesuvius looms, clouds coiling round its peak like a toga's drape. Your wife once swore she saw smoke there, just missed. You'd scoffed. Now the memory curdles. Workers harvested its sulfur for medicine. Fools also mined it for cursed amulets. Fresh cracks vein the shops, north wall, each fissure whispering of burdens even Atlas wouldn't shoulder. A centipede flees the oven's foundation, its 100 legs skittering toward sunlight. You crush it reflexively, stain your heel in yellow ichor, then immediately regret it. Superstition says they predict quakes. Rational men call it nonsense. Rational men also drowned when their ships ignored storm clouds. Behind you, the sourdough starter bubbles, yeast thriving despite the chaos. Life persists. Always. You tear yesterday's loaf, feed the birds through the window, and watch Vesuvius shrug off its cloudy mantle for now. Moonlight stripes the flour-dusted counter as your fingers knead shadow dough, the shop silent, except for the kiln's dying whispers. You shape the offering under Orion's gaze, barley flour, mixed with honey stolen from Jupiter's altar 3 streets over. Isis's shrine glows in the corner, a terracotta lamp, staining her lotus crown crimson. Your wife's snores rattle the upstairs bedroom, each snort a reminder of her hatred for foreign mumbo-jumbo. The honey cake takes form, 7 sides for each Nile flood Isis once commanded. Historians found carbonized votive cakes in Herculaneum kitchens, proof of secret nighttime devotions. Yours rises imperfectly, one edge slumped like a drunk senator's toga. You trace an Ankh symbol into the crust, ash from Vesuvius's slopes, staining the lines black. 3 figs sacrificed to the kiln, their sweetness a bribe for divine attention. Flames hiss as the offering slides in a puff of smoke curls like Isis's sacred serpent. Some claimed her priests could cure blindness with milk baths. Your neighbor swears by their love potions. The scent of baking barley mixes with dried mint from Egypt, a fragrance that would have gotten you fined under Vespasian's old cult bans. A cockroach scouts the counter, antennae twitching toward the honey jar. You flick it with a wooden spoon, watch it skitter into a crack where the wall's new fissure gapes. Priests called beetles sacred, you call them free cleanup crews. The kiln mutters, its embers winking like conspirators as the cake browns. Your elbow knocks over the salt cellar, grains spill across Isis's stone feet. A 7-fold pinch was tradition. You toss the whole mess into the fire instead. Let the gods sort it out. Flames leap blue, sulfur-tinged from Vesuvius's leaks, casting your shadow giant on the wall. The honey cake emerges charred at the edges, centered by a perfect golden disk, a sun rising through storm clouds, the Alexandrian spice seller would have said. You drizzle stolen garum over it, fermented fish guts for authenticity. Historians still argue whether Isis devotees saw her as demon or deliverer. Your empty stomach votes for neither. Outside, a dog howls, probably that 3-legged stray who steals your burnt crusts. You place the offering between Isis's chipped plaster hands. Her smile cracks, revealing older worship beneath. Pre-Roman ghosts lurk in Pompeii's foundations, Etruscan curses seeped into volcanic stone. The kiln exhales warmth across your neck, approval or accident. Dawn's first rooster crow shatters the spell. You sweep ash over the shrine, bury yesterday's heresy under today's chores. The honey cake will vanish by noon, eaten by vermin or gods. Who cares? Your wife's sandals scrape the stairs. You plunge both hands into the communal flour sack. Innocence etched in every fingerprint. Moonlight pools around your ankles as a shadow detaches from the alley's mouth, ribs protruding like amphora shards beneath patchy fur. The three-legged hound limps closer, his whine barely louder than flour cascading into the sieve. You toss a charred crust his way. Watch him snap it midair despite the mangled paw. Historians found dog remains chained in Pompeii's doorways, guardians in life, guardians in ash. He licks the flagstones clean, tongue rasping against volcanic rock, polished by 1,000 sandals. You name him Cerberus Jr., a joke that earn eye rolls from every philosophy student in the forum. His ears flick toward the street. A growl rumbles deeper than the baker's handcart wheels. Roman poets claimed dogs smelled deceit. Tonight, he smells unwashed feet and desperation. The intruder freezes mid-step, one sandal hovering over your threshold. Moonlight glints on the knife in his belt. Your throat tightens, but Junior's snarl vibrates the air like a plucked lute string. The man backpedals his retreat, marked by receding cusses and Junior's triumphant huff. You reward him with yesterday's fish gut garum sandwich, regretting it as fishy drool puddles by the millstone. Dawn finds him curled against the kiln's warmth, ash-dusted fur blending with the soot-stained bricks. Your wife scowls from the staircase. That thing's fleas will bankrupt us. You nod, then slip him a honeyed fig when her back turns. Archaeologists debate whether street dogs were pests or partners. Junior gnaws the fig pit. Unconcerned with scholarly disputes, he learns the rhythm of your days. Flinch at the millstone's screech. Doze through noon's numbing heat. By the third night, he doesn't startle when you murmur psalms to Isis, just thumps his tail against the shrine's base. A fresco down the street shows a dog guiding souls to the underworld. Junior guides your broom to every crumb-swept corner. The butcher's son tries stealing barley sacks, claims he's borrowing them. Junior's bark shakes moths from the ceiling beams. The boy flees clutching a half-empty bag. You dock the loss from the brat's tab, add an extra charge for the moth-eaten tunics. Some claim Molly's bread could calm attack dogs. You pocket the recipe fee. Let Junior's teeth do the negotiating. Rainstorms transform his fur into mildew-scented wool. He shakes violently, splattering your mixing bowls. You wipe him down with a moth-eaten tunic, its former owner 3 years buried. The damp air amplifies his snores. They harmonize with the leak dripping into the salt jar. Priests used dog's blood in purification rites. You settle for keeping his paw prints off the altar bread. He vanishes during the Vulcanalia festival, returns with singed fur reeking of bonfire smoke. A scrap of purple cloth clings to his teeth, maybe a priest's robe, maybe a drunk patrician's scarf. Historians still argue Whether strays were tolerated or culled, Junior sprawls across the customer bench, rewriting history one stolen nap at a time. By harvest moon, his ribs hide beneath a pelt glossy with stolen olive oil. Regulars toss him scraps, their guardian tax paid, in chicken bones and dubious sausage. The fishmonger's daughter leaves him shell necklaces. He eats 3 before you intervene. Glass jars in Herculaneum held dog collars, studded with bells. Junior's dignity remains unblemished by such nonsense. The midnight thief returns, this time with bread, knives, and friends. Junior's bark yanks you from sleep, a snarl like millstones grinding bones. You fling open the shutter to see him herding the men downhill, a 3-legged sheepdog corralling wolves. One kicks his injured haunch, the yelp echoes off bakery walls. You hurl an amphora, it shatters at their feet, wine blood soaking the street. At dawn, Junior limps, pride intact, to claim his reward. An entire burnt loaf. Your wife mutters about wasted profits. You point out the unbroken lock on the grain storeroom. He dozes by the kiln, bandaged haunch twitching as he chases dream thieves. 2 boys press noses against your window, wide-eyed, whispering tales of the baker's Hades hound. You sell them rolls shaped like 3-pod prints, double the usual price. Moths dance around Isis's lamp as Junior noses the honeycake platter, untouched since last night. He whines, licks the fish garum residue, sneezes. You break off a crust. He swallows it before the goddess can protest. Outside, Vesuvius murmurs, its breath warm against the shop's cracked walls. Junior's ears swivel toward the mountain, a low growl building in his throat. You toss another crust into the dark. His jaws snap shut on the offering. Silence, returning like a dropped veil. The crack splits the pre-dawn silence like a bad omen. Your palm, still pressed against the millstone's warm surface. Wheat berries scatter across the floor, rolling into shadows where Junior whines, his muzzle flecked with volcanic ash. You trace the fracture with flour-caked fingers, a jagged lightning bolt through basalt. Roman bakeries relied on volcanic stone mills. Now yours resembles Vesuvius's slopes after yesterday's tremors. Junior noses the broken edge, sneezes at the dust plume. Your chest tightens. Dawn's first customers will arrive in 2 hours. The backup quern sits rusting in Capuan sulk, last used when Nero crooned about burning cities. You kick the millstone frame, regret blooms in your toe before the pain registers. The blacksmith's forge glows red through the alley's gloom, a beacon for desperate trades. You sprint past shuttered shops, Junior limping gamely at your heels. Ammonia stings your nostrils, the fullers, urine vats, overflow again. Historians still argue whether millstone repairs qualified for actio damni injuria. Their scrolls won't need your dough. The smith examines the fracture, grease-streaked fingers probing stone like a wound. New pivot, he grunts, 3 sestertii. You curse, could buy a month's grain for that. His apprentice smirks, teeth filed into points after some barbaric fashion. Junior growls at the anvil hackles rising. You counteroffer. A week's bread. Your pick of the loaves. The smith spits into the coals, steam hisses. An amphora of your best wine. A robbery, but the mortar and pestle can't feed Pompeii. Back at the shop, you smash olive pits for oil, the paste stinking like a tanner's nightmare. Junior guards the crumbling millstone, snapping at moths drawn to the wheat spill. Your apprentice arrives late, reeking of cheap perfume and poorer choices. You force him to hand grind flour. His wines harmonize with the pestle's crunch. Dawn's first customer arrives as the smith's cart rumbles into the street. The widow Procula eyes the shattered mill, clucks her tongue. Bad sign, she mutters. Ants fled my pantry cracks at sunrise. You palm her honeyed millet loaf, its underside still doughy from rushed baking. The smith's hammer rings through the shop, stone dust snowing onto rising dough. Junior howls with each strike, a cacophony scattering the sparrows roosting in your rafters. Regulars smirk at your modern art millstone, now propped up with shattered amphorae. You charge double for creativity. Noon finds the mechanism, turning grinding slower than a senator's digestion. The smith wipes his brow, leaves a charcoal handprint on your ledger. His apprentices haul away 3 bulk sacks. Your wife's glare could melt lead. Junior pees on the smith's sandals, an act of solidarity that costs you 2 extra rolls. By sunset, your knuckles bleed from kneading half-ground grit. The last customer leaves with a loaf resembling Mount Gorus, lumpy and twice as foul. Junior licks your hand, garum breath warm against raw skin. You collapse onto a flour sack, dreaming of quiet tombs and unbroken stone. Pompeii's streets stink of roses and human sweat, your bakery counter buried beneath garland-choked loaves. Flower petals stick to your forearm like pink leeches. Each Illyria roll gets a free garnish of crushed peony. Historians love citing Flora's spring festival as pure celebration, but nobody mentions the blisters from threading those damn garlands. Junior sniffs the air, tail wagging at the pork, roasts across the street. His fur sparkles with ground murex shells, your wife's festive touch disguising his mange. You swipe glitter from an olive loaf, wondering why rich matrons pay triple for bread that literally glitters. The answer stings. They don't eat it, just use it as plate decorations at orgies. A flute band parades past their melody, drowned by your apprentice's panic. We're out of spelt, he yelps, knocking over a jug of garum. You toss him barley flour, your smile sharp as a bread knife. Even emperors ate barley during sieges, but today's customers will never taste defeat's gritty truth. The dancer strikes when your back aches from bowing to prissy patricians. Silk swirls past, a bronzed arm swipes a sesame roll. You glimpse her henna'd feet vaulting onto a wine cart, laughter bubbling over the crowd's roar. Historians still argue whether Pompeii imported Egyptian dancers. Right now, you're just mad she took your best bread. A senator's wife demands Apollo's portion. Code for extra honey and your last fig. You palm her a reheated millet loaf, 3 shades darker than yesterday's fire. She wrinkles her nose, slave in tow, already reaching for the next baker's wares. Junior pees on her departing sandal. The crowd's applause muffles your scolding. Your millstone groans under the festival rush, its new pivot screeching like a tortured cat. Petals fall into the flour. You bake them in, pink streaks mocking your lack of sleep. The blacksmith wanders past with 2 prostitutes, smirking as he pockets his discount loaf. Junior buries the man's sandal laces under the counter, a debtor's revenge. Twilight brings rose sellers dumping wilting stock onto your roof, the scent so thick it burns. You collapse onto a flour sack, counting coins flecked with murex glitter. Somewhere the dancer eats your stolen bread, her teeth sinking into crust you'll never taste. Vesuvius watches from the north, its silhouette wreathed in festival smoke like a bridal veil. Rain slaps Pompeii's ash-caked streets, transforming the festival's pink haze into a clinging gray paste. You stumble back as your kiln hisses, flames shrinking beneath the downpour. The marble counter fogs over. Last week's bread prices blur into illegible streaks. Junior shakes himself dry, splattering your legs with mud and murex glitter. Across the street, the garland seller's silk canopies collapse, drowning roses in runoff. You grab reed mats to shield the oven, but the wind tears them like papyrus. Rain ricochets off baked bricks, the rhythmic ping almost soothing, until your fire coughs its last breath. Historians love praising Pompeii's drainage systems, forgot to mention how festival ash clogs every gutter. Your neighbor's amphory tip over his prized fish sauce, merging with the deluge. The street becomes a river of garum and petals. Your sandals squelch with each step. A passing slave slips, cursing, as his bread crate floats toward the brothel. You rescue 2 loaves, their bottoms stained pickled fish green. Special edition. You mutter, knowing the drunkards won't care after 3rd cups. The blacksmith's forge down the block still smokes, his apprentices frantically pumping bellows. You consider hauling coals, then spot his borrowed sandal laces dangling from Junior's jaws. Petty vengeance warms you better than any fire. Raindrops seep through the roof, plinking into your salt jar. You snap the lid shut, salvaging what's left of tomorrow's margins. A matron's litter nearly crushes your toes, her bearers charging through knee-high water. Her pearl-drenched hand waves a soggy bread coupon. I demand dry rolls. You offer her a rain-swollen loaf, its crust sagging like a defeated gladiator. She hurls it at your feet. The splash hits her silk slippers. Junior barks approval, earning a grape from your dwindling stash. Puddles reflect the brothel's lanterns, distorted red lights dancing on black water. The kiln's last ember dies, its glow replaced by cold drizzle. You clutch the final unbaked loaf to your chest, dough warming your palms like a living thing. Archaeologists found upside-down amphorae in Pompeian gardens, turned makeshift rain catchers during storms like this. Thunder shakes the awning's support beam, its groan echoed by your empty stomach. The scribe from section 28 sloshes past, wine jug held high above the flood. To Poseidon's wrath, he slurs, tripping over a submerged chamber pot. You don't laugh, too busy memorizing the weight of unbaked bread against your ribs. Wind tears a festival banner, the words prosperity and joy wrap around your ankles like shackles. Historians still argue whether sudden summer storms were seen as omens right now. It's just a fight to keep flour dry. Vesuvius hides behind the downpour, its silence more unnerving than the thunder. Water drips down your neck, each drop a reminder that fires die. But hunger doesn't. Rainwater still drips from the awning's edge, each plink echoing the Vesuvius downpour, now reduced to a memory. Your shop reeks of wet ash and curdled milk. Juniors pause, tracking muddy mosaics across the floor. Then the door slams. A soaked girl clutches the counter, her fevered fingers leaving steam prints on the marble. You made Nana's bread. Her voice cracks like overbaked crust, eyes glassy with whatever plague the storm brought. Behind her, a slave shifts foot to foot, hands empty of coins. You recognize the pattern desperation, wears the same face rich or poor. Historians found recipe tablets praising milk-soaked bread for humor imbalances, Roman aspirin for a society obsessed with bodily fluids. Her palm slaps the counter, a single aureus glinting through sickly sweat, gold meant for the temple, stolen or given. You don't ask. The coin could buy your entire grain stock or 10 funeral shrouds. But her trembling jaw mirrors your daughter's during last winter's cough. You swipe the aureus, its edges biting your callus, and snap wait. The milk pot's barely warm, coals dead, but the stone oven still radiates residual heat. You shred a rye loaf, stale from yesterday's rain-soaked rush. Crust dissolves in the clay bowl, pale swirls rising like ghostly steam. Nana's trick honey for sweetness, but your hives drowned in the storm. A dollop of fig jam serves as substitute, its fermented tang masking desperation. She inhales the steam, ragged breaths, sinking with your stirring. The slave eyes the door, probably calculating how fast he can flee contagion. You drop a cinnamon sliver stolen from the senator's last order, the bark's spice, cutting through sour milk. Drink, you grumble, pushing the bowl across the counter. Her hands shake, liquid sloshes onto wrists already blotched with rash. Archaeologists debate whether Roman food medicine actually healed or just placebo for the desperately hopeful. You don't care the girl's choking gasp as she swallows tells you all that matters. She sags against the slave, a marionette with cut strings, but manages a whisper. Tastes like her. The slave nods gratitude, or maybe relief, at escaping your germ-laden air. They vanish into slick streets, leaving the aureus and a puddle of what might be tears. You pocket the coin, its weight dragging at your conscience. Junior noses the abandoned bowl, tongue lapping remnants, until his fur sticks up in milk spikes. Night creeps in oil lamps, battling the damp to cast jaundiced light. You crush dried chamomile over tomorrow's dough, an experiment for imaginary customers. The hearth's last warmth fades, stone cooling beneath your palm. Some priestess scrolls claim bread baked during fever dreams holds prophetic crumbs. But you've never found truth in gluten. Rain starts again, gentler now, a hissed lullaby from vengeful skies. You curl on the backroom cot, Junior's milk-scented breath warming your neck. The aureus digs into your hip, each toss sparking imagined screams of either thief or saint. Sleep comes in fragments, vinegar and honey visions of a girl's steam-printed hand fading on marble. Dawn arrives gray and coughing. You rise, ashes in your mouth, to knead dough that'll never rise. The scribe stumbles in as you sweep flour dust into cracks between floor stones, his wine-stained tunic clinging like a second skin. He slumps against the counter, reeking of cheap amphory and cheaper decisions. A secret he slurs, index finger wagging at your bread racks. Your rival's loaves taste like ambrosia. Know why? You slide a clay cup across the counter, vinegar-cut wine, masking the water's sulfur tang. Rome's aediles policed markets for grain fraud, but everyone knew their palms stayed greasier than a roasted duck. The scribe gulps, red droplets trailing his chin like war paint. 10 silver denarii monthly to bypass the quota. His whisper carries across the empty shop, Junior's ears twitching at the hissed consonants. Your rival's shop gleams 3 streets east, marble counters buffed by slave sweat. A bronze likeness of Ceres adorns his door, while your chipped terracotta Bacchus leers from a corner. You trace the cup's rim, calculating denarii to whom. The scribe hiccups, grins spreading like spilled yeast. The aedile's new mistress prefers pearls to wheat. Funny how officials suddenly develop hobbies requiring bribes. Your finger freezes mid-circle. Last month, the grain shipment arrived half-rotten, maggots marching through your storeroom like miniature legionnaires. He leans closer, wine breath fogging your cheek. Bastus paid double after the earthquake rumors started. Historians still debate whether Pompeii's elite new Vesuvius would erupt. But panic spends faster than currency. You refill his cup, figuring the cost against yesterday's stolen aureus. Junior whines at a drifting moth, paws slipping on flour-slick tiles. The scribe's head thuds onto the counter, his voice muffled by folded arms. Says the mountains just belching. Like Uncle Gaius after garum, you snort, wondering if gods find mortal comparisons as insulting as bakers do. Crumbs stick to his stubble as he lifts his face, eyes glazed as festival lanterns. Meeting them tonight, dockside warehouse. Bring your scale, unless you enjoy pebbles in your next batch. His laugh curdles into a cough, fist pounding his chest like a faulty millstone. You pocket the wine jug, Let him fumble for the last drops. Night air slithers through the door, carrying salt and fish guts from distant ports. The scribe wobbles into darkness, a drunken moth chasing his own shadow. You relock the shutters, fingers lingering on the rusted key. Roman vinegar flowed cheaper than fresh water. Scholars found amphory labels, proving vintners doctored bottles with lead for sweetness. Your own cup tastes like betrayal and bad decisions. You blow out the lamps, leaving one sputtering flame for Junior's watchful eyes. Dough waits in the trough, pale and accusing. You knead thoughts into the glutinous mass, each fold embedding schemes like raisins in a cake. The Edile's pearl-loving mistress becomes your silent business partner, her greed a lever against your rival's ambition. Dawn approaches. Its light stains the sky like watered wine. You shape loaves with extra care, their scored tops forming cryptic patterns only bureaucrats could miss. Let Bastus bribe magistrates. Your bread will whisper sweeter truths to hungry mouths. The last honeycake cools on the counter, its spiral patterns mimicking the labyrinth beneath Knossos. Your knife hovers, ready to slice victory into edible chunks when Junior's ears snap forward. Silence crashes down like a dropped amphora. No cart, wheels screeching on Via dell'Abbondanza. No fishmongers haggling over mackerel shine. Even the fountain nymph's marble lips go dry mid-giggle. You lean out the window, bread shovel in hand, like a legionnaire's rudies. The date carves itself into memory, Augustus's month, though later pedants will squabble over autumn figs found in the ash. Pompeii holds its breath, streets empty as a plundered tomb. Your flour-whitened arm pebbles with goose flesh, not from dawn's chill, but the absence of warmth. Junior whimpers, pressing his mangy flank against your leg. Across the forum, a dozen heads tilt skyward. The mountain wears a new crown, dirty cotton pulled taut over stone. Volcanic fog wasn't in the Sibylline books, or at least not your dog-eared copy. You snort, blaming Vesuvius's theatrics on rival baker Bastus, burning another batch. The air thickens. Each inhale coats your teeth like gritty plaster. A single blackbird streaks past, wings beating double time toward Stabby. Centuries later, they'll find your last batch petrified in Herculaneum's ruins, carbonized miniatures, still bearing knife, marks from this very blade. Today, the loaf just feels heavier, dough surrendering to some unseen weight. Your sandals crunch through fallen pine needles, a sound absurdly loud in the hush. The well's bucket hits water with a thunderous splash. When you drink, it tastes of nothing, no sulfur, no minerals, as if the earth forgot its flavor. Junior laps at spilled drops, each tongue flick echoing off silent walls. A shop shutter creaks open 2 streets over, then slams shut. The baker's boy from Papidius's shop sprints past, ankle bells jangling a frenzied warning. Historians will later parse graffiti about clouds without wind, but you're too busy counting heartbeats between strange growls underground. 137. You chuck a stale roll at the brothel's sleeping guard. It bounces off his helmet with a hollow clang. He doesn't stir. Even the flies avoid his snoring mouth. The joke writes itself. Since when does Cerberus nap on the job? But your laugh dies unspoken. Ash begins falling as you relight the oven, gentle as spring blossom snow. Except blossoms don't sting your eyes or crackle underfoot like eggshells. You'd scream if the silence weren't a living thing, swallowing sounds before they're born. Junior howls at nothing or everything, his muzzle pointed straight at the mountain's swollen peak. The first tremor nearly knocks the proofing bowl from its shelf. You steady it instinctively, years of earthquake drills baked into muscle memory. This time, the ground doesn't stop swaying. Roof tiles shatter in the distance, a dry laugh compared to your pounding pulse. Your wife's herb garden withers as you watch basil crumpling like papyrus in flame. Strange magic or poison air, the answer won't matter to the legionnaires' wives buying rosemary loaves tomorrow. If tomorrow comes, if anyone buys, if a child's sandal lies abandoned near the millstone, its leather strap still warm, you pocket it without thinking, the weight no heavier than a denarius, but infinitely stranger. Outside, shadows stretch northeast as if fleeing the sun itself. The temperature spikes, oven's breath without the oven, sweat evaporates before it forms. Your tunic crisps at the edges, fabric singing a song only moths understand. You dunk your head in the water barrel, emerging to see fish floating belly up in the public cistern. Lightning forks through the ash cloud, purple veins illuminating phantom shapes within. Maybe giants stirring, maybe the Furies sharpening blades, maybe nothing at all. You drag a sack of Durham wheat over the shop's threshold, grain spilling like defiance across the threshold. Someone screams in Greek, 3 words swallowed by a rumble deeper than Pluto's chariot. The counter cracks down the middle Bacchus's terracotta head, rolls into the street. You catch Ceres's bronze gaze from your rival's doorway, her wheat crown tarnished black. When the answer comes, it's not in Latin. Gray flakes kiss your forearm, the kiln's fire sputters as shadows lengthen. You shape one last loaf, a eulogy in dough, before the darkness swallows all. Your fingers sink into the dough, stiffening as ash clogs the air between kneads. Junior whines at your heel, his muzzle streaked with charcoal tears. The oven's last breath wheezes out, slumped embers hissing through cracks in the brick. Across the street, marble Silenus grins through falling cinders, still clutching his broken wineskin. You press a thumbprint into the loaf's crust, an impromptu grave marker for 4 decades of dawns. Historians will later find its carbonized twin in Herculaneum's vaults, puzzling over knife, cuts they'll misidentify as ritual symbols. Today, you're just balancing honey on cracked lips, a stolen sweetness before the end. The ash deepens, burying your ankles in powder finer than Capua's milled flour. A stray cat's paw print appears beside yours, then vanishes under fresh gray snowfall. Your tunic stiffens, starch replaced by volcanic glue, every movement crunching like old parchment. Junior collapses first, his wheeze the same as when puppies came stillborn. You crouch beside him, ash filling the space where his ribcage rises. 18 years from now, excavators will debate whether your shop's calcified watchdog was protective or trapped. Ambition sticks in your throat. You should have bribed that wine merchant for a faster cart. The loaf bakes unevenly, one side blackened before the other even browns. You cradle it like a dying friend, too hot, but numbing palms welcome the burn. Outside, someone's abandoned cart horse screams, a sound that rips through woolen air. Peering through the door crack reveals only swirling gray. The brothel's obscene frescoes, now modest, under modest ash. Your last customer was the street's stone Priapus, still grinning with his chipped phallus. At least he paid up front. The roof groans, a mortal sound no earthquake ever made. You shelter beneath the counter, knees pulled to chest, the loaf cradled like a child's skull. Plaster rains down, white powder mingling with gray in your lashes. Someone screams two notes, a melody cut short by collapsing pillars. Your tongue finds a split lip, metallic tang cutting through sulfur stench. When you blink, it's not Pompeii burning, just mother's face scowling over underbaked flatbreads at age 7. Her ghost mutters about pitiful final offerings. But death sharpens all critics. The dark arrives in sheets, each wave thicker than murex dye. Your lungs rebel, coughing up mucus streaked with black spiderwebs. The loaf cools in your lap, untouched, as your throat seals shut. In this blindness, the ears play tricks. Waves crash where there's no sea. A woman laughs your wife's laugh, though she's been gone since the February fever. Maybe the dead get bored waiting. Lightning flashes once, illuminating the shop's ruin through ash-veiled eyes. Your knife lies nearby, blade reflecting distorted faces in its tarnished bronze. 16 eruptions you've weathered, 17 if counting Bastus's kiln mishap. The mountain always spat, but never roared. Fingers fumble for the cooling loaf, a final comfort turned to pumice stone. Centuries later, scholars will argue whether most Pompeians fled or stayed, never grasping how stubbornness outlives hope. The answer's in your grip, this concrete bread monument to routine's arrogance. Your final exhale shapes a word, probably again or enough, lost in Vesuvius's crescendo. The darkness feels merciful now, a baker's linen draped over tired dough. Thus concludes the 31st tremor. The ash falls, the loaf hardens, the world forgets to turn. Gray flakes brush your forearm, the kiln's glow fading as shadows stretch. You mold one last loaf, a quiet farewell in flour, before twilight wraps you in its hold. Your hands sink into the dough, growing heavy as ash settles between folds. Junior whimpers at your ankle, his fur dusted with gray. The oven sighs, last embers whispering through tired bricks. Across the way, marble Silenus smiles under ash, his cracked wineskin cradled like a relic. You press a thumb into the crust, a gentle mark for years of sunrises. Experts will later find its preserved twin in Herculaneum's vaults, wondering at grooves they'll name mystery marks. Tonight, you taste honey on parched lips, one last sweetness beneath the dust. Ash rises, caressing your ankles like milled grain. A cat's print flickers beside yours, gone with the next ashen breeze. Your tunic stiffens, fabric now brittle each motion, whispering like autumn leaves. Junior slumps down, his breath fading like a forgotten song. You kneel beside him, ash softening the rise of his chest. Years ahead, diggers will ponder if your shop's silent guardian was loyal or left behind. Regret lingers, you should traded jars for swifter wheels. The loaf bakes crooked, one edge charred, the other pale gold. You hold it like a sleeping child, heat fading as palms grow numb. Beyond the wall, a distant horse calls its cry, muffled by woolen skies. Peering through the door shows only swirling gray, tavern frescoes now blurred under soft powder. Your final guest was the lane's stone Priapus, still smiling with his weathered grin. At least he settled his tab. The ceiling creaks, a tired groan older than quakes. You curl beneath the counter loaf, hugged to your ribs. Plaster drifts down, chalk and ash dusting your cheeks. A voice hums two notes, a lullaby swallowed by falling beams. Your tongue grazes a split lip, iron warmth softening sulfur's bite. When your eyes close, it's not flames you see, but mother's frown over lopsided rolls at age 8. Her shadow chides sloppy last acts, but final breaths attract harsh judges. Darkness folds in layers deeper than midnight ink. Your chest tightens, coughing up threads of shadow. The loaf chills in your arms, untasted, as breath turns shallow. In the hush, sounds twist. Waves lap where no shore lies. A laugh echoes your wife's cadence, though she vanished with the spring rains. Perhaps the departed grow restless. Light flickers once, showing the room through ash-filled eyes. Your knife rests nearby, its bronze mirroring blurred shapes. 16 blasts you've known, 17 counting bastises, oven mishap. The mountain coughed smoke, never thunder. Fingers graze the cold loaf, comfort turned to stone. Generations hence, experts will quarrel over who stayed or fled, missing how devotion outlasts fear. The truth rests in your grasp, this bread-shaped memory of sunlit mornings. Your last breath forms a word, maybe once more or peace, lost in Vesuvius's murmur. The night feels kind now, a warm cloth laid over work-rough hands. The ash settles, the loaf rests, and in the quiet, a new dawn dreams.